We're here, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter right now. You can see the backdrop. We're here with Eric Mika, BYU legend. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. This is a unique spot. I like it.
You're probably hearing the echo in the background with the noise and everything.
It's good. It makes it, like we're at home.
Yeah.
We're playing church ball. That's the name of the game. So
Exactly. So let's start this out. You replied to you quote tweeted one of our tweets where we said,
yeah, the worst take of all time.
Whoa, we'll get into that. Hold up. Give us a second, dog. Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding.
So we said, okay, we'd rather have a Big 12 tournament title than a Sweet 16 run. Now, we're fully walking that back.
We've since changed our minds.
Yes.
All right.
We've repented. We get it. Like,
everyone was jumping on you guys.
Well, it wasn't even because of that. Then we sat there and realized we're like, March Madness is so much more fun, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's so much cooler and everything.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, like, a Big 12 tournament title would be one of the biggest accomplishments in BYU basketball history. But
yeah, for sure.
The Sweet 16 is just different. I mean, that's the difference between jobs and, the legends of the game. You don't remember what happened in the Big 12 tournament 3 years ago.
Well, I just felt like in the question that you guys posed, you answered it because you said someone said, well, it'd be so cool because when's the last time BYU even won the tournament? It was like in the early 2000s or something.
Yeah.
And you didn't remember, right? Nobody remembers. nobody cares. But when's the last time we went to the Sweet 16? Everyone remembers, right?
Yep.
Like there's kids named after, players that were on that team. So are there? There probably are.
There's probably Noah Hartsock out there.
Noah's a legend.
He is.
He was a GA my freshman year. And so he was still like in good shape. He's kind of like what Charles Abua is doing right now. Yeah. So like giving us different looks and getting into coaching by being still like a great player. And dude, his fadeaway, his post stuff was unstoppable. Like really.
He had that funky form a little bit.
Yeah.
He started real down low.
Yeah, it was like
nasty.
Dirk-esque where it finished and you just couldn't touch it and he'd always make it and he'd have some little zinger after and it just pissed you off.
I remember being in Blacksburg, Virginia. BYU played at Virginia Tech. He's at the free throw line and the whole student section's going, Bosley.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Noah's great. He's a goat.
Yeah, shout out Noah Hartsock. I do know kids named Jimmer. And so
really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You have a really good point.
There's kids named Jimmer?
Absolutely.
We're in Utah.
And it's
though.
for sure for Jimmer Fredette.
Yeah. I mean, what else would it be?
But we're in Utah, though. We're getting like the McKinsleys, the Breckenridge. We're getting whatever out here.
Eric
people
with a
aren't
C.
afraid. Yeah. No, Eric with a C is the right way to do it.
I know.
What about Carter with a K?
Wrong.
No.
Very wrong.
No.
It's right?
Yeah.
No. Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, Carter's with a C.
I'm not. You put me in a tough spot, man. He just passed away. Rest in peace, Jimmy Carter, man.
I put you in a tough spot because I'm right.
No, Carter with a K. You got to be unique, man.
I have a nephew, first of all, with a C, plus Jimmy Carter. Like
Not
those
cool.
are the two Carters in the world that I've ever heard of, and they're C's.
Yeah, that's a Utah name to have Carter with a K. Carter.
Is it?
That's pretty.
It's gotta be.
That's pretty Utah.
That's not
Switch
universal.
it
Yeah.
up like that.
I expected better of you being from Carolina.
Well, my parents, classic Mormon family, had 7 kids. I'm the youngest. They all started with a K, and so they had to get creative. I thought my name was going to be Kareem. Yeah, it could have been Kareem Karate.
They went 7.
They went 7 for 7.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got 5 nephews too at the moment, so we're 12 for 12 right now, batting 1,000.
All with K's?
No, not with all with K's. No, we tried and failed. So a lot of G's actually.
Oh.
What do you mean you're batting 1,000 then?
All boys.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, boys.
Dang.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So, no NBA players though. No one close.
Well, maybe number 13 will be.
Yeah, maybe number 13. Who knows?
But back to what we were talking about. We came down to Carter and I, and the comments. Look, they were not kind. Not all of them. Yours was, of course.
They actually weren't that bad. They just disagreed with us. We had a bad taste.
Some of them
we deserve it
or whatever. But we just thought about this team right now. We put ourselves into their shoes, not their shoes, but we're just like, would we rather this team win the Big 12 or make a Sweet 16 run? And the answer was clear. Like, that's just more fun. It just means more. And that weekend and everything that goes into it and what you look forward to is the answer. We were trying to think long term. We're like, it would be a better accomplishment. You get a trophy, a banner, all those things. But in the end, I think you're right.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but it's like if we lost our first game in the Big 12 tournament but made a Sweet 16 run, everyone would be pretty psyched. The other way around, I think everyone would be bummed. It's also like chronological, like the issue. It's like having the big dance last, like that's what you remember just from the season even more, right? Like last year, Pope squad, a lot of these guys are on that team, overachieved, played really, really well, put them themselves in a great position. And then, tough matchup, didn't play great and lost. And that's what everyone remembers from that season, right? Not like all, they don't forget everything, but the focus is like, man, but we blew it, right? Versus
coaches lose jobs because they can't win in March.
100%. So I just think it's a bigger deal, but I totally understand where you guys are coming from. I don't think it's a crazy take, like, because it is a huge deal to go get some hardware, in a great conference.
Yeah.
So talk about this team right now. Last night, we obviously watched that game. They beat Iowa State on the road, double overtime thriller, blew a 21-point lead, still pulled it out. What are your thoughts on this team, man? Like, how special is this team? How far do you actually think they can go?
Yeah, I like, unlike most fans probably, enjoyed how we won last night. I did the post game for West Virginia on Saturday, and I liked how we won that game. Like, I liked that their game plan was better than ours. And yes, I like seeing the adjustments, but I like that we won that first half in a different way. Like, we were scrappy. We showed that we can also slow down and win games. We can also muck people up on offense and get them to score 19 points. Like, it's like, okay, you want to play that way, we can play that way. So I like that from Saturday. And then again, it would have been fun to kind of repeat that Kansas game. Go into Ames and dog walk them by 25 points would have been, a huge resume builder. But I think long-term, preparing themselves for what's happening next week and the week after that, and hopefully, as deep as possible, I think winning that game in that way is more important, because you're going, first of all, we see how good we can be, right? Like, we're in Ames up by 20 plus. And then even when the fans get into it, even when the other team makes because it's a game of runs, right? So we didn't freak out. They went on their run. There were some pretty bad calls, and I'm not so blue goggly that I'm just saying that. Like,
no, it was egregious.
There were some really bad calls. So all of a sudden everything is against you, and they still stood their ground and found a way to win. And I think that's going to pay off more than a 25-point win in Ames would. And so I'm ecstatic about it. Like, we've shown that we can win in a lot of different ways, that we have a lot of guys that do things well. And KY has just done a really good job of figuring out, what combinations for what situations. And that's all it is.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It also is like just very physical and a great way to just get ready for games where it's going to be do or die.
Yep.
And these teams are going to come out with everything they have.
Well, an interesting point, like the physicality, is interesting because you don't know what ref you're going to get in the tournament, right? Like, you could get one of our favorites from the WCC days, right? Who are the absolute best referees.
You want to name some of those? Or?
Yeah, right.
You can't get fined now. You're
guys,
good.
Yeah, you guys know who I'm talking about. All of them. It's all of them. But, an interesting thing. So TJ and I went and visited Pope last month, and we went to the Kentucky-Tennessee game, and it was a bloodbath. It was the most physical game I've ever seen. It was insane. Like, I couldn't believe some of the calls that they weren't making. But it was pretty consistent. It was like, we're just going to let both sides beat each other up. So for me, it was fun to watch. I like that, even though it was ugly, like, it was fun. But then the next day, we're talking about how that team adapted to the physicality. And he's like, yeah, we're getting dominated on rebounds. So we told our guys, just turn around, both forearms, shove people out of the lane. Like, that's how we're going to win rebound battles. He's like, but that's great because we figured it out and we're doing better. But when we get to the tournament, this whole league is screwed, because you don't know what ref you're going to get. And so that's, again, speaking to the adaptability of this team. It's like, we don't know what ref we're going to get when it comes to the tournament, but I think we proved last night and in other games that we can figure it out, right? Like, we can adapt. And even when we have a horrible whistle, we have enough other things going for us, right? That we can still win games. It's the same thing with free throws. People are freaking out about free throws. And last night was great because we made free throws, but it's like, guys, I understand, but we can't be perfect. Like, we can't do everything perfectly. And it seems so easy because they're called free throws, but it's not. It's a lot on your mental side. These guys are getting plenty of reps up, but we're doing enough other things right that we're not relying on that, right? Like, none of our players are making 15 points a game off of free throws. Like Richie had a bunch of them last night, but that's not his game. That's not any of our games. So it's like, okay, would you guys rather we're making our free throws, but we suck from the three? It's like, you just can't be perfect. And so if we're winning games and slowly improving and obviously giving it a point of emphasis, which I know the coaching staff is, then I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, that's one of the.
I just went in a crazy tangent.
No, you're good. But that's a really good point, because one of the best things about this team is when something is lacking, they make up for it in other ways. Like West Virginia, the Kansas State game, did not shoot great from three, which is kind of their MO, but they were able to do so much more, getting to the paint, playing great defense. And you saw that last night. One of the things, too, one of the qualms with this team early is how they played on the road. And it was a struggle early on in this season, but throughout this 7-game stretch, they've played and won in some of like really, really tough stadiums in Arizona, Ames, Iowa, right? You know something about that, winning big games on the road. He did it there and did the Kennel once or twice. Talk to us about bringing that energy on the road and playing in environments like that.
Yeah, I think that just speaks, this is my independent thought, but I did just see Kyle Collinsworth tweet about it, so I'll give him a little bit of a shout out. Even though he's an idiot, but he said teams that have great chemistry win on the road, and I think we're seeing that. So what was one of our worst 2 games? Really, like 2 games that I'm like, that wasn't us. We were still figuring it out. Because other ones were free throws and end of game situations that got us, but Houston and Providence, right? Like we just hadn't figured out our chemistry yet. Like it takes a long time. I was at practice last week, and it takes a long time for a system to really sink into a team, right? Like I saw it at pro levels. Like a lot of teams I was on didn't perform to the level that they should have with the talent that they had on the roster as a pro, because we all got thrown together in August and we had like 5 weeks of training camp and getting to know each other. And so, luckily we did have that core. So we did still find a way to win games early, but I just think everyone has come together and figured out what their role is. They've embraced it. They're excelling in it. And our guys, I think, from the outside looking in, I think they genuinely want to win, and they genuinely like being around each other. And that has turned into some big wins on the road. I mean, look, like the guys, they were just having fun out there. Even when it got close, I saw Richie smiling, like they're having fun, they're playing loose, and that's how you win on the road.
And with that chemistry as well, they run a 10, 11-man rotation. That just doesn't happen in college basketball. How tough is that you played college basketball, coming in and out, hodgepodge lineups. You can't really find your rhythm. It's so impressive. This team, these guys that come in, they just bring their own energy into the game.
Yeah, I think that is a great point. And one of the more impressive things about this team is that when I'm talking about this chemistry and they seem like they are happy for one another when they have success, even if their night isn't that night. What's so crazy about that is teams that find that there's normally like 7 or 8 guys that are playing, right? So to stretch that to 11 and still have that feeling of, man, it could be anyone's night and I'm happy about it as long as we win, I think is what's special about this team and gives them a chance to make a run. Because you get so many looks. And so if everyone's genuinely in and committed to just winning, then those teams win. Like they really, really do in March. And these guys have proven themselves as winners, have proven that they have the chemistry, and they're just super deep, factoring in those first 2 points. Everyone's all in. So, I mean, that's the coolest thing, is that there's 11 guys that are playing and still bought in.
Exactly.
It's hard to do, because if you have one, like everyone says that, but I've been on enough teams, unfortunately, to know it just takes one that's like, well, geez, like this guy sucks from 3. Why do they keep playing him? That it's not even a cancer. It's just one guy who's thinking that, and it translates to the rest of the team.
They don't have that. And
no,
we've seen as they've settled into the season, what you're talking about, right, is buying into that system. I think even the coaching staff had to figure out and settle into
for sure
what was going on this season. And I want to switching gears a little bit here. BYU is on just a different trajectory now than what they've been in the past, with money coming in, NBA head coaches, all these things have changed. And I'm interested to hear your perspective on it as someone who's, been a part of the program, played for BYU, and maybe a little bit of a different era. Where do you see BYU going from here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exciting. I'm a big fan of KY. There was I don't know, like a month last spring where I was kind of wrapping up with my own playing career because of my knee, and I was thinking about coaching. So we actually had a bunch of conversations before anyone really knew much about him, before I knew about him, his style, his coaching career, and like our conversations were solely like, what is coaching like? What can I bring to the table? Where do I see myself and his experiences? So I liked him from the first conversation we had. I felt like right away he was a guy who, there's different types of coaches, and I felt like he was one that, even though he's the head coach, he'd still get in the gym late and rebound for a guy, and I don't know if he's done that this year. He probably doesn't have to with all the people around him, but like he would, you know what I mean? And guys that have played at a certain level will know what I mean. And I think that means a lot. I also think it meant a lot that he commanded the respect of the players that he did in the league, because those guys, they'll sift you out so quickly if you're not genuine, if you aren't a good coach, if you don't love the game. They'll figure it out pretty quickly. They have enough people in their lives that are disingenuous, that are just trying to get something out of them, that are fake. And so the fact that he was with guys at the top of the top that like love him and vouch for him, I knew he was going to be special. So, big fan of him. I thought he put together a pretty awesome staff. I love going and watching their practices and just seeing, how professional it is, right? Like not like buttoned up, but like it is a carbon copy of the NBA practices I've been in, and the G League practices I've been in. The development, the focus on getting these guys working on the right things, even at the most minute details in each drill, and then seeing how that translates to game. So I think I'm excited. Like as a fan, it's weird. This is my first year being on the other side and being like geeked out about watching like college basketball. Like, I feel like such a dork staying up late last night watching the game. Me and my buddies are like on FaceTime, like making fun of the other team. And
welcome to the dark side, brother.
Right.
We've been here for a couple decades.
It's a dark side, but it's been a lot of fun. And so, huge fan of him and his staff. The guys currently on the team, all the things that they're building. I mean, it looks like it's just going to keep going up and up and up. And yes, as a fan geeking out, but also as a former player, like it's nothing but positives for me watching that.
Talking about the different eras from what you came in, when you were at BYU, it almost felt like the military at some point with no NIL. You can't do anything wrong, all that good stuff. And obviously they still have the honor code and all that good stuff going on at BYU. But with the difference in the NIL era, how wild is it to see BYU fully investing in athletics?
Yeah, I mean, not that wild. Like I feel like we've done a really good job. You look at like our game day experience. It isn't that different today than when it was in 2013 when I was a freshman. Like they've had that down for a while. They do a really good job with what they have, with what they're delegated by the school. And so I'm not that surprised because we've always had mega fans sitting on the sideline.
That's true.
Like these guys who are worth hundreds of millions and billions that are geeking out like I am now. I remember like when I was a sophomore we were going to some conference game and we're sitting on Ryan Smith's plane and he's on the plane with us and like he thinks it's cool to be with us. And the whole time in my head, I'm going like, we're nobodies, bro. Like you're the cool one. You know what I mean? So like we've always had like a ton of support and really interesting and unique and successful people that are bought into not only the school and its mission and athletics, but the church as a whole. And so I haven't been that surprised because I'm like, these people have wanted to do more. Their hands were tied like ours were as players. So, I think it's super, super cool that in 1 year, I mean, NIL has been around for 3 years and I think we've gotten better and better. We got to a new conference. We did really well last year. But you look at this season, football and basketball, and I feel like NIL has really become more what it's going to be from here on out this season, right? For most schools, like they've had time to acclimate and build a system of recruiting and fundraising and deployment, all those things. So I feel like obviously there's changes coming, but the bulk of it is kind of set now. And now we're crushing because we have resources. We have people that are huge fans. We've just never been able to use them. Right?
And
we just, the NCAA, it's almost like the rule only hurt us because we had people that would listen to the rules.
Yeah, and I think what KY and his staff do a great job of, and you're seeing it this year with all these dudes still bought in the NIL era, is that, you know, they're not playing for the check. They're not playing for getting paid. They're playing for each other. They're playing for the school. And that's another thing that's so different about BYU is, look, if a top recruit, BYU could pay him whatever they wanted, but they got to be able to buy into the Provo experience because that's a whole nother animal.
100%. I've said this a million times. TJ and I are working in the NIL space, and so we have these conversations a lot. At the end of the day, things are kind of moving back to where they were before, meaning, okay, now there's rev share. Everyone's getting a similar amount. So it's, what are the other things? What are the things on top of the NIL that are going to, when I was going, it was like, all right, what are you traditionally ranked? Do you go to the tournament? And what are your facilities like?
Yep.
Right. And then it slowly shifted, but now it's, for a second there, it's like, well, who can pay the most? Right. Like, kid on Hawkins on Kansas State. It's like, he's going to go where the most money is. That kid from Utah State, he's going to go where the most money is. So now that's going to slowly even out, right? It's going to even out because universities are going to figure out what kids are actually worth, right? Before they just commit to $2 million. Like, okay, well, what have you done and what year are you? And all these things. It's going to be a lot more calculated and a lot more even for different levels and tiers of sports. But it's going back to, okay, well, what are your facilities like?
Yep.
Who's your coaching staff? Like the actual recruitment will matter more than, who's going to give me the most money?
Because the money's going to be there.
Money's going to be there. It's going to be close enough. And so that's where I think BYU has figured some things out, because they're like, okay, as long as we are the same or similar, right? Because previously, like, we're not getting guys like AJ without NIL because someone's going to give him money under the table.
Well, Coach K would never do that.
No, right. Coach K would never do that.
Coach K would never Bill Self, maybe, Roy Williams, they would just have him take fake classes.
Wait, what are you?
I'm a Duke fan.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh,
grew up a Duke fan.
His own people.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you mean? Yeah, has Coach K ever been caught doing something?
Wait, are you being sarcastic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't. For a second there, I got lost.
Zion Williamson's whole family moved in. They bought him a house.
They got a house. Right. Yeah. Exactly. So it's like, okay, so now we're let's call it even Stevens on what we can give to players. So if it came down to, let's go with Zion, like, and then that's a bad example, but. Okay, we can pay what other people can pay. Now it's, where are you going to have a great experience? Where are you going to develop? Where are you going to be? Also, optics. Where are you going to be viewed as someone that takes this seriously? And we're beating a lot of schools out. So it's a huge, equalizing factor for a lot of schools, but especially BYU, and that's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, everyone can get trips to Disneyland now. We might cut that out. I'm just joking. But speaking of like facilities, it's just a testament to the progress of the program. If you can correct me if I'm wrong, freshman year, you guys are practicing like in the RB in Marriott Center.
Yeah, in the summer. Yeah.
And then you come back, the annex opens. You did score the first basket in the annex.
I did.
I'm also a geek.
Yeah.
It was a dunk. You could tell you were a little nervous.
That's super geek.
I'll just take the,
I was not nervous.
You took the safe bucket.
We were trying to get one of the main contributors to the building to score the first one.
They didn't show, so they just
No, they were there.
Okay.
He's an older gentleman at the time, and so he like couldn't make a bucket,
And you can't miss that first layup.
No, and so it was kind of like we wanted him to do it, but then it got to a point where it was like, all right, let's throw an alley-oop, or
Wait, did he miss?
He'll be the first. Yeah, he could barely get the ball up.
I thought you guys were like,
no, I'm talking like,
buddy, no.
like old. So it was like, all right, well, he'll be the first assist, I'll be the first bucket, and yeah. TJ's not dunking it, so they let me be
Right.
the
They're
first
like,
one.
let's get Eric in there.
He's sneaky athletic, gym rat, crafty.
Gym rat, crafty.
Yeah, he had a little bit of bounce
He did.
in high school.
Just talking, man, that high school team. Can we talk about the high school team real quick? Because you guys were nasty and killing everyone across the country. Like one of my favorite things to watch is just old Lone Peak highlights of you guys doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I just have it on repeat at my house.
Do you? You just got like a projector set up in the
my
living
kids
room.
need to understand.
Yeah, they're like, your dad was like that.
Yeah. No, that was a fun team, and that I think I can say had a similar feeling. You know, we weren't as deep. It's high school, right? Like, how could you? We didn't recruit. We weren't some prep school. We were all, you know, born, and if not born, raised for majority of their life in Alpine and Highland. So it was super unique that we were all there, that we were good friends from when we were 10 years old. And it, you know, similar to this year's team, and why I feel like I can speak on the matter is because we had a lot of talent, especially for a high school team, and nobody cared whose night it was. Like that's why it was so fun. It was probably the most fun year of basketball for me. You know, it was all downhill as you got into politics and money and all that good stuff. But as fun as I had after that, it was the most fun because we just wanted to win. And like, truly, there was no single sour person in there after a win. If they had a bad game, it was just like, we got it done. And so we just kept stacking them and putting them away. And it became kind of all right, whose night is it going to be again, similar to this team. And that is a super, super fun way to play, because you know that there's good juju, and if you're bought in, it's going to come back to you. Right. Yep. Like it did. So it was a lot of fun.
Who's the best guy you played and beat in that run? Because you guys went across. I mean, you guys are playing all over.
I always say the wrong number, but we beat like 6, 7, or 8 state championship teams that year, which is pretty cool, and just whooped all of them. I think, I think Aaron Gordon is an easy one, because you know, it was on ESPN. He had some incredible dunks. I mean, like, what's crazy is, like, he was all those dunks in the dunk contest that they say is the greatest ever, which I throw my vote in with them. Like, I think that is the greatest, him and Levine. They were doing those our junior and senior of high school. So I was invited to the Ball is Life All-American game. I didn't go because of prom, of all things. I ended up marrying her. So
okay. You were at the
dang, dude.
I didn't go, but that just tells you, like, I didn't care about the clout. I didn't care about my ranking. I didn't care.
No,
about
you
anything.
you just cared about a girl.
I just cared about a girl. I was thinking long term, but the week after, there was like kind of a smaller, like, West Coast All-American, All-Star game, whatever you want to call it, and it was a good lineup. There were a lot of good players. And Levine was in it, and they were like, hey, do you want to be in the dunk contest? And I looked up his video from the week before at Ball is Life, because I'd won a couple dunk contests, and they're like, do you want to be in it? And then I was like, well, who's in it? And they said Zach Levine, who I'd never heard of. And I looked up his Ball is Life one from the weekend before, and I was like, nah, I'm good. and he was doing the same dunks, right? Yeah. So, like, Aaron Gordon was doing the same dunks, and just incredible athlete. He had one on our backup center that was like Sports Center top play. It was an inbounds alley-oop. He was so high, slammed our guy to the ground, and he probably had 5 or 6 highlight dunks. And he had a great game, but we beat him by like 40, right? Like, killed him on national television. That night it was Connor Toulson's night. You know, everybody played fine, but I think he went like 6 for 6 from 3. You know, Connor who played at UVU. And like, we were all stoked, because we're like, yeah, Connor's a great player. We love him, and we just got a big dub. So great, on to the next one. That was one of the more memorable ones for sure.
And how fun is it when you go into a gym? I mean, these dudes, like Aaron Gordon's looking over across the court. They see a bunch of white dudes from Utah being like, and you guys are like, we can beat these guys. We've done it a bunch of times.
Yeah, I think we you know, the longer we went that year, our ranking just kept going up.
Yeah.
So we didn't catch as many people off guard. We still smoked them in the first quarter, but it wasn't like, oh, we're going to murder these guys. But the summers leading up to those seasons, that's when that would happen, right? Because it's AAU. They don't really know who you are unless you're highly ranked, which, all of our kind of rankings came later. At least mine did. So I just remember we played this team from, either Atlanta. Maybe Atlanta. I can't remember. But yeah, like legitimately laughing in our faces, like not taking layups seriously, which most people don't during AAU. But it's like, this is our high school team. We're terrified of our coach. We do what he says. We take everything seriously. Our game prep was very single track mind. Get ready for this game, like a high school game, like it was our last game ever. We took everything seriously, and that team, they're dinking around in layup lines. I remember just seeing they're all trying to do through the legs dunks and like audibly mocking us from the other side of the court. And then we came out, it was 20-1, and then it's too late. It's like, well, what do you do? What do you do now? And just that feeling of like breaking someone's will after they thought they were going to murder you. That's a good feeling. So we like doing it.
Y'all were nasty, man.
Yeah.
Y'all were nasty. And then you, Nick, TJ, y'all come to BYU. Do you have any good like BYU recruitment stories? What it was like visiting? I mean, you kind of understood probably being from the state and close by.
Yeah. Man, any good recruitment stories? I feel like that it was just a different era. Like, you talk about the impact NIL has, right? Like, I feel like recruiting us was easy. Like we all grew up close. They had older brothers that went to BYU and played basketball. I had an older brother that was playing lacrosse, and I have 4 older siblings that had all gone there. My parents went there, and I think the case is the same for Nick and TJ. Both their dads played there. It was kind of like, of course we're going to BYU. Right. Like there was no question of it. And obviously that's not to take away from the staff and their ability to recognize our talent early, because they locked Nick and TJ up super, super young. Right. And then they came after me the second they saw, some ability. And it was kind of like, there's no question. I didn't even take a visit. I think I did an unofficial visit at Utah State when I was a sophomore, and not even really thinking like that about basketball. It was kind of secondary in my life, but yeah, like we were going to BYU, and it helped that we were all good friends and that we were having success in high school. We were like, yeah, let's just go do this again, So yeah, recruitment was just different back then for sure.
You didn't have like Jimmer. I think Jimmer said it on a podcast that he had like a Miley Cyrus bubble party they went to or something.
Oh,
I can show you the nightlife here.
I mean, I think I went on like a couple of visits just because I just go to football games and right. Like, so I'm sure it was like
you run out of the tunnel against Arizona.
Yeah, right. 2 unofficial ones, 1 official probably, but I think I slept at my house every time. Like
right.
I didn't even stay at the hotel, and I went to dinner with Brandon Davies and Matt Carlino. Like they were my hosts up in Park City, and then afterwards they're like, "All right, so do you want to do anything?" And I was like, "No." Like, I don't care about any of this. I'm like, I skipped the Ball's Life All-American game to hang out with my girlfriend. So obviously I was pretty low key, but I do remember, I remember being on the flip side and helping recruit people. Peyton Dastrup, I think, was coming to town, and me and Luke Worthington, like, it's babysitting. Like when you're that guy. So like Brandon Davies and Matt Carlino, like I for sure let them off the hook. Like they don't want me to hang out all night. Right. I'm a high schooler. Like they probably want to go off, do their own thing, So like I'm sure when I got out of the car, they were like, thank goodness, and so then I'm on the flip side. I'm hosting Peyton Dastrup with Luke Worthington. We're thinking the same thing. We're like, man, we don't want to go to some party with some random people, but like we got to show Peyton a good time, Right. So I remember we took him to some party, and it was whatever. But and then another one I hosted. I think those both had to be my freshman year. Frank Bartley and we took the guys up to Park City, and I had this Toyota Land Cruiser, so it was piled up. I need to figure out who was on this trip, but it was, for some reason, TJ wasn't there because we've talked about this. But Jake Toulson, I think Ryan Andrus, Dalton Nixon. It was a bunch of guys from that class. Maybe even Peyton Dash was there as well. But yeah, we went up and had dinner in Park City. I won't tell the whole story, but there was a minor road rage incident on the way back where this guy was like swerving, trying to hit me, like pumping on his brakes, going down the canyon. It was insane. And I'm like 99% sure that he was drunk. But
it was like at UteFan69 on Twitter.
Yeah, right. It was one of those friendly Twitter accounts. But eventually, yeah, he like got off on this exit. Like, he was driving very dangerously, right? And of course, I'm just getting like hyped up by these guys in the back. Like, we gotta follow him. We gotta go get this guy. So I get convinced to just pull off the exit, which is such a bad mistake. But I'm 18 years old or whatever, and he gets out of his car. And luckily, I didn't get out of my car, because that could have been bad. But he's like, "What are you doing?" He was for sure drunk. He's like, "What are you doing? Tailing me," and blah, blah, blah. And then, like, before I could even say anything, the back window was down. Like, Jake Toulson had his head. He was all the way in the third row. He had his head out the window. He's barking at the guy. Ryan Andrews barking at the guy. I'm barking at the guy. And then he just like got back in his car, drove off, and then we drove off. So like nothing really came of it, but it was a funny memory, because these guys were just, they're fun guys. They're competitive. They're loud. They want to get in people's faces. And that guy picked the wrong car.
Does the coaching staff take turns? Like, how does the hosting thing work with recruiting? Like, was it just they give you a call and they're like, "Hey, we got a recruit coming in. He's coming to stay with you this weekend," and you're just like, "You got to be kidding me!"
Yeah,
man.
I don't know how it works now. I feel like guys are probably more connected than they were back then, just because of Instagram and TikTok and all that good stuff. And more aware of each other for sure. Not that like we lived under rocks, but like. It's probably different now, but yeah, back then basically it was they went off of like relationships. So like in that case, it's like kind of made sense for the freshmen to do it, because we were the closest to those guys in age. I knew all of them from playing high school against them, minus Jake, who I got to know on that trip. So I think they're trying to get people that already have some kind of a rapport, but it does rotate. I'm sure some guys got a little bit more hosting responsibilities than other, just because they know more people and they might be a little bit more chatty, because the parents are there and who's the best schmoozer. So I did end up in those rooms probably more than other people.
You are the best schmoozer.
I'm the best schmoozer on the team. But
well, what are you doing this summer?
What am I doing this summer?
You want to go knock some doors?
Yeah.
You want to make more than your dad in one summer?
Yeah, right. I'm not schmoozing randoms or solar, but I can schmooze when I need to.
Okay, we can do pest control then.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Well, speaking of recruitment, you did have a chance to interview AJ.
Yep.
And if you haven't listened to that and you're listening to this, go give it a listen. We'll put the link in the description here, because it's great. But what are your impressions of him? You don't have to repeat the interview, because obviously people can go listen to it. But
sure.
What are your thoughts on him? Also his game and his demeanor, his personality, all that.
Yeah, I said this again on the show. No, it was on the Wise Guys show recently, where I just think like he is built for it, and BYU is built for it as well. Like I think we've done such a good job. I've mentioned this, like our game day experience is unreal, right? Like it's close, if not better than any other in the country. And we've been doing that for a while. I think our social media is money, right? Like we always have, BYU has always had great creatives, right? Like we have people going to Disney and Pixar and the ad lab. I had a bunch of friends that were in the ad lab that are doing incredible things in the creative space now. So we're getting these interns and these, campus jobs being filled by some really talented people. And then that move on to the full-time roles as well, because they love BYU and they want to be a part of it. So I feel like we've been ready and doing it at a high level for a long time. Like we can make you a star, or if you are a star, we can elevate your status and your clout and all those things in the very best way, And I mean, look at Deep Blue. Like the Deep Blue little things are 7 to 10 minutes long, and they're super cool.
They're great.
Like,
yeah.
They bring these stories to life and show a human side of these people and get the fans to love them even more. Like a genuine love for these people. Like I believe our fans love our players probably more than any other program. Like they just wish them the best more than, like, even when we're shooting bad or we lose games or whatever, like it's a different fan base. And so it can grasp onto a star, I think, in a really, really cool way and unique way. And so AJ and his family recognizing that and embracing it, I think speaks to their intelligence, their brand awareness, and just the fact that it's a perfect fit.
Yeah, and on top of that too, we talked about this, I think it was on our last episode or after the West Virginia game, that the importance of him embracing Provo a little bit too is going to be massive. And we saw that, I think it was the West Virginia game. That was the last home game, right? And he's walking through the rock and waving and shaking hands and taking pictures with everyone.
They spent the entire second half like in the crowd.
Yeah. And I think that kind of stuff is just going to be so important because you don't want a guy coming in who it's his team almost versus his own team when they're there.
Yeah, I just think it's all important for this narrative that KY is building and this momentum that the program is building, because it could quickly go the other way, right? Like where if you get some super selfish guy who's a me guy that's focused on the wrong things and not bought into all that comes with BYU, it could be a PR disaster, right? Like, especially with how much money is being put into it. Like the optics matter, not just to the program, not just to the school, not just to the school, but also to the church, right? So him understanding BYU and its entirety and the mission and all the things that come with it is important because, it's like the whole world is like, oh, why would you ever go there? Bunch of weirdos. They just focus on what you can't do and what they do differently. A guy like AJ comes, like Yegor is doing right now, like Cannon is doing right now, and building, even more of a presence, whether it's rankings or social media or whatever, just people, their platform being elevated and AJ's being elevated next year and him embracing it is so important moving forward. Cause then it's not, oh man, why would someone ever go there? I get they have money, but why would you go there? It turns into, that's a no brainer, right? Like it's a cool place that embraces you, that elevates your brand, that is up to snuff on the money. And it's going to set you apart in life. And I think that's cool. Like that's always been the difference, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to push that narrative, and it's always been true. It is a different place to go. Like even with some things that you may have to concede, not being a member of the church, for example. But the people that come, I think, are so grateful that they did so. And now, if it can be public, then that's great. So I just think it's great for the narrative. I think it's great for the program moving forward. If he comes, has success, and really embraces all the other parts, which it looks like he's going to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I got to ask you this question before we move on to talking about Utah and that game on Saturday a little bit. The podcast is called Church Ball. We're in a church building. Talked to you a little bit before. You didn't play a whole lot of church ball, but you do have some good just pickup ball stories.
Yeah. So I think I played like one church ball game when I was in like 7th grade, and I played with our priests, and I think I was the best player on the team, and that was all.
I think you were too. I wasn't there, but I think you were.
That was all I needed to see. Shout out to our priests. No disrespect.
Brother Jensen wasn't guarding.
Yeah, no, he was cold that night maybe, but yeah, I only played one church ball game. But I was saying to you that I think church ball and kind of like family reunion ball are on the same plane.
Yeah,
and
even more bad blood. Probably.
Yeah, got a lot of great. I mean, first like family basketball thing. I just think of like my older brother. We'd play one-on-one. I think I became like physical because of him, and a super competitor because of him. I just want to beat him, and he's 3 years older. I was beating him one time, and he pinned me in the corner of this gym and just started wailing on me. so he wins that round, right? Like it doesn't matter what the score is.
Don't matter, yeah.
If you're crying at the end, you lost. So that's one of my favorites. And then we used to play with my aunts and uncles. They all loved it. We had a little court at this place we'd all meet up in the summer in Canada, and like this tiny. It was probably about this size, maybe a little smaller even. It was basically like a pickleball court that we'd play basketball on, and I had this one uncle that would just rough everybody up. He was like the enforcer, but it wasn't like legit hockey enforcer mentality, but playing against his 12 and 13-year-old nephews. And it's one of those stories where I've heard it and told it so many times that I don't even remember how it all went. It was either me or my brother. One of us put the ball through his legs and then tried to run around him, and he just clotheslined us. Like, just punch a 12-year-old in the face.
He's like, Larry Bird never did that.
Yeah. Lakers Celtics finals, just on a pickleball court.
Yeah. This is my NBA finals. So I feel like it's very much in the same boat. I played pickup like in churches that I've organized. I try and generally avoid churches though, because I mean, you don't
out of bounds. There's no space.
The out of bounds. Obviously, the length.
Dudes get heated.
Yeah. It's not an ideal court. Yeah. if you're trying to get better,
right.
But every once in a while it came in handy. I was in a couple of those, those Mormon message videos with the Haas families, or the Haas family. I jumped into some of those early workouts with TJ and Marty, and that was in a gym. I mean, carbon copy of this one. You didn't have the.
Yeah, we're in like a 3-on-3 court right now.
Yeah, this is barely like a half court, right? So it's pretty cool that the church has chosen basketball as the number one sport.
That's right.
Yeah, not pickleball, man.
I don't see a football field in here.
Yeah, me neither.
I get
only because basketball is the favorite, not because of
it's just convenient.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, exactly.
Yeah, no, I cannot stand it. I'll walk into a gym getting ready to play pickup with some people. There's pickleball going on.
No,
it's a sin. Repent for that. Get out of here.
The pickleball wave needs to move on.
Thank you. We have a supporter. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's talk about this Utah game. BYU obviously lost in the Huntsman Center earlier in January this year. We talked it down a little bit. He caught himself in the interview where he's like, I want it super. I'm really excited, and all that kind of stuff. How intense is that rivalry for people that have never played in it?
Yeah, super intense. Unfortunately, I only played them once and lost. We had a great team. So did they. They had a talented team. They had a great game plan and just kind of punched us in the mouth. And I'm so convinced that like the first 5 minutes of college games will tell you everything that you need to know, right? Like, you're young, it's hard to bounce back. Your confidence gets shocked, and
he scores 0 points.
Yeah,
like last night.
He scored 0 points. And that's what happened to us. So they had a great game. I ended up getting a flagrant 2 in that game, so I got ejected. And
what would you do? I have to pull up the clip.
Yeah, we might have to put the clip on here.
I think it was a little excessive to get the flagrant 2. It was dumb. It was unnecessary, but on their part, because what happened was, I think his name was Dallin Bashinsky or something like that. I think it was Dallin. There were 2 brothers. He was a big guy, and they were beating us pretty good. Like, the game was over at this point, maybe 7 minutes left, but it's like up 20. It's hard to come back, but I'll probably be wrong on all those things. But he went up for like a layup, kind of like a finger roll. He had gotten behind the defense, and I went up, and I was trying to foul him. So that's where I do understand why they call the flagrant. But I kind of pulled his arm, and again, I could be so wrong on this, but I've told myself this so many times that I'm convinced that this is how it went down. Frank Bartley was kind of tripping behind him at the same time, so he got undercut. So like I looked, like the Incredible Hulk slamming him down right. because like his legs got cut out from beneath him. And so they went and reviewed it. I got kicked out. And then I just remember walking in front of the student section. They were relentless. Like, I heard some of the meanest things. And I actually think I yelled back at them. I was barking back at them some also not so nice things. I didn't do any gestures, which was big for me at the time. The fact that I had that self-control was, I think, surprising to Coach Rose afterwards. But yeah, tough game. Heated rivalry. Like, I think if you're on Twitter, you kind of just understand how annoying each fan base is to the other.
Nice save there.
It just
that was real diplomatic.
They just drive each other insane. It's like you can't read one tweet from one side without literally 80% of the comments being the other side. It's like, guys, just get a life. But yeah. I do understand. It is a big rivalry. It's a historic rivalry. And I just feel like a lot of people say this, and I totally agree. Like, throw the record out the window. Even if you haven't grown up, most of these guys, actually, I shouldn't say most of these guys. A lot of these guys on our team And I would say most of the guys on their team didn't grow up watching this game, right? Or really caring about this particular rivalry, but it doesn't matter. It's just like, it's grafted into your soul when you're on these teams, even if it's just for 7 months. So I feel like so many emotions are played into it. Would I be super surprised if we came out and smacked them? Like, no, because we're playing at a high level. But like, they're obviously a capable team. They're close to 500 in the Big 12. They've beaten us before. They've beaten other good teams that are playing well. So I don't know what to expect. I think we'll win. I hope we win. I think it'd be a great way to, most importantly, send our seniors off. I think,
and some of our freshmen.
That's the thing. Yeah. And some of the freshmen. That's the thing that I care about most, is that we have a good senior night, more than like, we're a lock in the Big 12. And yes, it has some repercussions for the big dance, but I'm like, March Madness is a crapshoot. So I can't say us being a 6 versus us being a 7 versus us being a 4, one is better. You don't know.
Yeah.
We really don't know. So I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about our seniors having a good night and finishing on a high note. But all the other stuff, the big picture stuff that I'm sure people are reading into this game, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it should be a great game, just based off of, obviously, earlier overtime, BYU loses by 1. I think they've been thinking about it. They want to get this one back. Feel like they lost that one there at the end. It's also a sellout already. Secondary market, it's like $170 to get in the building.
Yikes.
It's going to be crazy. So should be a pretty sweet environment. Obviously, BYU is going to be favored pretty heavily. If the analytics are correct, probably around like 14 or 15 points. But as far as stylistically, what are we going to need to see from BYU to get it done?
Yeah, I think it's just calming those nerves, like the only pressure that you feel is the pressure you put on yourself, right? So there's a lot of emotions riding on this game because of all the things I just mentioned. These rivalry ones, they just feel different. And having lost in the manner that we did. And then I'm sure, I'm not the only one that's been on Twitter and seen, the chirping, even though we've had a great season, it's like, oh, well, it's always like the people love being like, well, if this team won the national championship and they lost to this person, they lost to this person, they lost to us.
Yep.
It's just like, for some reason that factors in, like, you hear those things and you get sick of it. So I think there will be a lot of emotion riding on the game, and with senior night, that's a big deal for a lot of guys, like, especially with how close this core group is. I mean, you think about, like, Richie and Foose have played together forever, right? Going back all the way to Wasatch. So there's a lot of, narratives that are interwoven that add to the emotion of the game. And, I think we just have to find a way to make it another game, right? Like, whatever that is. I don't know if it's the prep. I don't know if it's a pregame speech by one of the players or by KY. I don't know if it's maybe.
We can get you in there.
Yeah, no, you don't want me in there.
Some of those gestures come out.
I'm too low key now. I just put these guys to sleep. But, maybe it's just settling into the game, and it's a huddle brought together by one of the guys, like, after we make a great play or a bad play or a hard foul or whatever. Like, something is going to happen. We're just going to have to come together and say, hey, this is just another game. Let's just be us. Let's continue, moving in the direction that we were. If we do that, obviously we'll have no issues, but it's going to take leaders, the leaders on the team stepping up vocally and making plays and going, like, not just, hey guys, let's go do what we've been doing, but, like, I'm going to do it first. And then all the other guys are going to calm down. Like, okay, he's doing it. We're all doing it. We'll be all right.
How big of an advantage is the Marriott Center in your mind for this game?
It's huge. I mean, I think, like, any juice is good juice for both teams.
Yeah.
Like, I think that can be true. Like, I thought, Hilton looked like a lot of fun last night, and I think our guys embraced it. So it's kind of a mindset thing, but it's just so loud. The student section, I've said this before, like, I don't know how they get away with some of the things they do behind the hoop.
Oh, behind the hoop. Okay.
It's like,
it's crazy.
It's like the car lot, wiggly guy, whatever you want to call him, with the air, like
doing like the optical illusion stuff.
Yeah, how is that allowed? So I know, like, statistically it's proven that first half versus second half, it does have an impact on the game. But most importantly, it's shown that our guys are comfortable there. That's the most important thing. Like, you can talk about the crowd, you can talk about the student section, but sometimes that can be a plus for the visiting team. But our guys have done a really good job. I mean, we lost 2 games this year, right? Like, against a very, very capable, both teams, 2 really, really good teams. I mean, I went to that Arizona game and I was like, these guys are going to win the national championship. Like, they looked really good. They are really good. Like, they're built really, really well. So I just think our guys are comfortable. And so if that can play into that, calming the emotions thing, then it's a huge advantage.
Were you, a little off topic, were you superstitious at all? You have like a pregame routine when you played?
No, I used to get so nervous before BYU games that I would throw up sometimes or get close to it. Like, I felt physically sick until the game started. And that got a little better, I think, as I got older, just not superstition, but just routines, but yeah, no superstition. I'm trying to think if there was anything. And you like, maybe I'm the only guy that ever did this. I doubt that, but sometimes you do, like, it crosses your mind. It's like, man, if I play great tonight, I gotta put this sock on first, right? Yeah. Like, next time. But then, like, you never remember all the things. Like, you're like, I gotta carbon copy this whole thing step by step, and you never remember any of it. So it's just important to have a good routine for things that matter.
Yeah. Talking about some of these guys on the team who are going to be developing into NBA players, heading into that space, that area. You're someone who has experience there, preparing for being drafted, playing in G League, even NBA minutes. What's it like heading into that system from college? What do these guys need to be prepared for?
It's and I think, I'm sure I had people telling me this too, right? But it's hard to grasp until you're in it and then really understand the importance and gravity of certain things until after. Like, I look back and understand a lot more, especially being so connected, having played NBA minutes, but then also being so connected with the G League, and specifically, G League Ignite, and seeing that process again the last 2 years with highly touted guys. Like, I went into it for sure naive, like, of how cutthroat it is. It's like, man, you go to those workouts. I did 16 pre-draft workouts. Nobody cares who you are. Like, all the other players, they do not care who you are. They want this job. And so, do you want it as badly as them? Do you want it more? So I definitely prepared physically. I was in great shape. And so I did really well in all my workouts. And felt like I showed that I belonged. But yeah, it was just crazy, the mental prep that it takes to go in there and just absolutely crush, an interview and have an edge over these other guys. Like, I worked out in Orlando. I bet you I was the one out of 6 guys that didn't get drafted. Like, it was a great group. And Dylan Brooks was there, and he was a psycho. Like, we were doing cutthroat one-on-one, and he was like chirping at people. He was getting in people's faces. He was fouling. Like, it was whatever it took to win that drill. But how he won it is what stood out to the Magic, I'm sure, right? Like, and that came from a super, super strong mental place. So, physically, it's very taxing. I had a week where I did 4 workouts. It was, I think it was like Dallas on Monday, San Antonio on Tuesday, Miami on Thursday, and Atlanta on Friday. Oh, I had 5 workouts that week. Sacramento on Saturday. So I went from Atlanta.
Oh, man, took a red eye?
Yeah. Across the country too.
So and that was a last minute one. So it wasn't planned, but they're like, hey, you had a great first workout. We'd love to bring you back in. So of course I'm doing that. But physically that's hard. All the flights and these workouts, they are just trying to kill you. They're just trying to see, like, how good a shape are you in? Like, how well did you prepare? All the drills are, full court one-on-ones, like layup drill, like conditioning that normally you have 12 to 15 guys to kind of buffer some of your give you a second to breathe. Now you have 6, right? And then you're going at each other like you've never gone at anyone. And you've probably been up all morning testing, barely touched any food, and you got in the night before. It's just physically so hard. You have to be in great shape. and mentally to carry over from one workout to the next and put on the right face and test well with the GM and then go do this online thing or computer thing where they do like a psychoanalysis. It's all day. Yeah. It's all day you're being watched and picked apart. And so physically, mentally, it's taxing. And so it's a lot. It's really, really hard. So you can kind of prepare for it. You can prepare for it, but until you're in it, you don't realize how crazy it is. Another huge advantage of, I mentioned my time with Ignite. These were former NBA players, former NBA GMs, former NBA coaches, scouts that were on this staff. And so right around this time, probably even sooner, we were doing, we meaning like Ignite was for the young guys, combine clinics. So they were working on all the drills. They were practicing interviews. They were doing the workouts that they were going to be doing in these 3-on-3 settings, and sometimes 1-on-0 settings, right? Like depending on how high you are in the draft boards. But yeah, like that's where KY has an advantage, right? Because like these kids had an advantage with Ignite, and KY is very much in the same boat where he's run those workouts 100%. He has run those workouts. He's been in those interviews. He's been in the meetings afterwards where they talked about what they loved about the kid, what they didn't like so much about the kid, on court, off court stuff, all of the above. And so that's a huge deal that these guys have agents and agencies that are going to get them ready and do all these very same things, but they have a coach who has this in the back of his mind the whole year. And that's the advantage that, when an AJ goes, it's an NBA coaching staff, like that's where I think it pays off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was a long-winded answer.
No, I love it.
No, that was
great.
That's
great insight.
Who was the best player you ever played with or against, in your opinion?
Against, I shared a court with LeBron, so I'm going to go with LeBron.
LeBron, okay.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
You with the Kings?
Yeah, when I was with the Kings, guarded him on a switch and he missed his 3. So
let's go.
Yeah,
that's all you.
Obviously instilled some fear in him.
Yeah.
No, I've told this a million times, and I'll tell it another million times. Like getting called up and then being in the warm-up line, like there was a moment where we like made eye contact, LeBron and I, and the fact that I'm here telling you guys about it tells you about where I am in the basketball world versus him.
There's nowhere you'd rather be than right here with us.
Exactly.
on some middle church chairs.
No, that's not how I meant. I meant it as like LeBron's not telling the story on some podcast, right? Like we made eye contact and he like looked straight through me. Like it's like I wasn't even there. It was great.
Imagine if LeBron goes on whatever his the barbershop I think it's called, and he's like, "Man, that Eric Mika guy. I remember looking at him in the warm-ups. I gave him the craps, man." Like,
yeah, no, LeBron's good. I played against a lot of really good guys. Like people don't realize like how they're starting to realize, but the average person doesn't realize how good Europe is. Like, Luka Samanic, however you want to say it, who was on the Jazz for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Great professional player. I don't know where he is now, but definitely NBA level talent. I played against him when he was like 17, and like he had a crazy dunk. It was in a Champions League game. He was playing for his Ljubljana, like hometown Slovenian team, and I was on a team in Germany, and it was like one of my first games with this German team, and he dunked on one of my teammates, and I'm like, holy cow, like this is so. It's like every game you're playing against somebody that's going to be in the NBA. That is, on loan from an NBA team or has been in the NBA,
right.
Like has put in serious minutes, like on NBA teams. So there's a lot of talent everywhere, and I've played against all levels of it.
You've had some serious Ignite teammates too.
Yeah, serious Ignite. Scoot, unbelievable. Ron and Modus are tearing it up right now. I know I'm missing guys, but yeah. Been fortunate to play with a lot of cool guys, a lot of great players.
What's your favorite Scoot story?
Man, Scoot, I just saw him last week when Portland was in town. It was good to catch up. He like the thing about him, why like I wasn't worried when he was going through some growing pains, is because I know how good of a human being he is, and how good of a circle he has. His family's incredible. They do a lot of good, and he, like for all the clout he had, he never posted about himself. He never posted his stats, his graphics. It was always pointing it to the next guy on the team, which I'm like, at 17, like that's pretty special. Yeah. Like you still don't see that with with any big time recruits. Like they're going to post themselves. Scoot never did, which was really cool. And the first like time I was like, holy cow, was we were doing like a 3-on-2, 2-on-1 drill. Mm-hmm. And this is like one of the first days we're getting ready for our game against Victor Wembanyama and his French team, Metropolitans, down there in Vegas. We have like 100 scouts at our practice, maybe more, probably like 150 scouts. And we're playing 3-on-2, 2-on-1. And one of my teammates, who is a great athlete in his own right and an incredible pro basketball player, has a great career, goes up for like a pretty routine layup, right? Like you should in 3-on-2, 2-on-1. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Scoot jumps from I don't know where and just pins it, 2-hand catches it against the backboard, and then brings it down the other way and proceeds to, on the same player, doesn't give it up. Because like if you shoot, you're the one back on defense, right? So this guy then gets back and Scoot kind of takes his time, but then one step in the free throw line just takes off and dunks on this guy. Like this is all within 15 seconds. And he's like turning 18 the next month or whatever it was. I was just like, holy cow. Like just an incredible athlete at a really young age that's balanced by, being a great person, caring about the right things and working super hard. So he's, I think, shown that he's on the right trend and out of those growing pains. And I think he's going to be a long-time NBA guy.
Mm-hmm. Did you draw the Wemby matchup? Was that you? Did you guard him? Or?
Yeah, man. So, that was tough because I actually played really well against Wemby. For one, he's super young, and matchup-wise, I think I had a huge advantage just physically. Like he's probably put on 30 pounds since then. He's
very skinny.
But I had like 50 pounds on him, right? Like there's a clip of me just shoving him straight under the hoop on a rebound. And that's how the whole game would have been. But what was unfortunate, I don't want to say unfortunate because it's just how it is, but like that game was for the young guys. That like we were trying to elevate their platform.
Yeah, it was being broadcast.
It was being broadcast. There were hundreds of scouts. The stadium was full. And Ignite is about giving these young guys a platform that other college players don't, right? Like they get the G League showcase, they get this preseason matchup against an international team, they get to play against pros every single night. That's their pitch to recruits. So I split the game with another big. And so I didn't get to like go dominate him, right? Because I didn't get to play the whole game and because we barely knew each other, right? I feel like if we played that game, because that year I was rolling, I had a great season. It was probably the best basketball season of my life. The way that they played through me, but that had to develop. That was like 2, 3, 4 months into the season versus we've been together 2 weeks. I got to split time with this kid because he's a young guy. So I got to guard him. Unfortunately, I feel like because I guarded him well, the shots he made on me were tough shots. And so those are the ones that played.
They're the ones on Twitter.
Yeah, they're the ones on Twitter. They're the ones that over and over and over and over and over during the draft and during pre-draft stuff, during combine, like they played him a trillion times because like I had a hand in his face, right? Because like I bumped him and he still made a tough shot. You know what I mean? So it was like, it was kind of bittersweet because I'm like, I am playing good defense. And he probably went, I've told people so many times because I get so much crap for this game because he had like 37 points. I'm like, he probably had 8 on me, right? And I want to go back and see the percentages because I swear he went like 4 for 13, which I'm like, I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? And the 4 shots he made were tough, but of course that made it look better for, the highlight reel later on. So it's like no winning there. Right. Yeah. And even if I did play the whole game and dominate him, I know the response is, well, you're 26 or 7 and he's 18. So of course you're down. It's just like when you're dealing with that kind of a guy with that much talent and clout, you can't win. You just can't win.
Right.
Even if you do win, you can't win.
Exactly. You're watching Sports Center late. Is that Eric Mika? Right.
Oh yeah. That's my guy. I got a lot of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Trevin now he's 26. Like he should be dominating physically.
Hey, he's a dog now, man.
He is.
He's barking at people. I like it.
I like it.
The most
Dudes
flagrants
get
on the
so
team.
mad. That's what I'm thinking about Saturday. He's getting involved in something on Saturday, and it's going to get chippy, I think. Excited about that one. We'll wrap up here. We've been going long enough. Appreciate you coming on. 2 last questions from me. We do this every episode. Predictions and MVP for the Utah game.
What's the line? 14?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I bet we win by 12.
Nice little backdoor there for Utah.
And
take this into account, bettors.
MVP will be, I'm going 2 times in a row, Keba Keita.
There you go.
I feel like he was
Revenge game.
He was a good MVP candidate for last night.
He was awesome last night.
He's like really just simplified his game and his role, and he's just dominating. So yeah, call it a revenge game. Call it just, a little bit more for him.
Yeah.
Meaning like he can't go 0-2 against his old team. I think he'll be motivated. I think we'll win. It'll be like a comfortable 12-point win.
I love it.
I've heard
Keba's MVP.
Yeah, I've heard from some guys in practice. No one wants to beat Utah more than Keba. Like leading up to that game, he wanted so bad. And was trying
especially
to help
at
everyone
the Hudson
understand.
Center,
Yeah.
And we saw him after the game. All those guys were upset after the game, but he was especially
Stuck around
upset.
for a while.
And then my other last question is, look, I'm not trying to do the whole blue goggles thing, whatever. Like, it's probably not going to happen. But if it does.
You want me to guess how far we go in the tournament?
No, you don't have to do that. No, it's fine. Because national championship, that's what you're going to say. So I'll just say it for you.
Yeah, right. Well, I was actually thinking we could just jump to the NBA finals this year.
Yeah,
Might as well.
Yeah. Did you see the
Celtics.
graphic? Utah's actually in the NBA now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're better than my Hornets. So
Pretty cool.
Anyhow, no, my question is, if BYU makes it to the Final Four in San Antonio, are you going to go?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be there.
All right, we'll be there too then. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. We'll see it. We'll see you there then. That's how it's gonna
Okay.
happen.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
day
do
is
a
that?
we'll do a pod. It's
day is
beginning
that?
of April.
I should probably book my flight.
Yeah, no, this guy already has his flights booked.
Oh.
Believe it or not.
I do it just in case every year.
Yeah.
Also
When we're in the tournament.
Well, I did it.
Not every year, I hope.
Maybe
Yeah, no.
maybe as my former Duke fandom or current Duke fandom, I may have booked it because of those reasons, and I may have done it prematurely last year, and then they lose to DJ Burns and NC State, and
It's the wrong blue goggles.
Exactly. Yeah.
it's the same
fake.
color.
Guy.
He's
I
a
know,
fake.
right?
I'm a fake.
He's a fake.
I went to BYU. I barely passed through physical science. I did my time, man.
Yeah, jeez.
The American heritage.
Yeah.
On that. Yeah, I'll be there.
All
if
right,
they go Final Four, if they go Sweet 16, I'll be there.
Okay, I love it because New York or San Fran, that'll be awesome.
One of those
So,
two locations.
I love it.
We'll
Hey,
see you
appreciate
there.
you coming on. Make sure to check out all the awesome stuff you guys are doing over at Center Street Media. Follow them on Twitter. All that stuff is in the episode description
You
below.
got something to plug? You want to tell people?
No, you guys just said it. We're kind of just getting this off the ground, but washed up with TJ and Alex Caressa has been a lot of fun.
Just did the Jaron Hall episode.
Yeah, we just did the Jaren episode. We're tinkering with it. Like, it is early, so go check it out. There are still great sound bites, and it's a lot of fun, but it'll just keep getting better and better.
Yeah, absolutely. Go follow all the social media, everything. 5-star review on everything.